Hello, hello, and welcome to Climbing Sideways, our weird little show where we ask anyone and everyone, what do you do and how did you get there? I'm your host, Adriana de Cervantes. Welcome to the final episode of Season 1, lucky number 13. To wrap the season, I decided to answer the questions I've been asking folks for the last 12 episodes. You'll hear my own windy journey and hopefully come to understand a little more about the show and why I love making it. Shout out to Zubin Hensler, my Climbing Sideways collaborator and creative partner, for interviewing me. I'll share a bright spot from this week. A few nights ago, I saw the Northern Lights, and it was insanely awe-inspiring. I am recording this intro and outro from a campground. Right now I'm in Canada, and I'm a few weeks into a summer-long road trip with my family. I've been reading a ton, hiking a lot, trying all the local beers, perfecting my campground coffee, and generally feeling eternally grateful for remote work and the life that I get to live. All right, let's get to it. Here's my story. Okay, yeah. We can take a minute and kind of explain to folks what we're doing here.
Yeah, cool. So, yes, Adriana, you're at my studio, Honey House Studios in Philadelphia, and we're turning the tables.
And it will be what, episode 13, lucky number 13.
Amazing. And
yeah, I am going to answer the questions that I've been asking folks for the last, how many months? 4, 5?
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
And it'll be even a little longer by the time this actually comes out.
Coming on 6.
Because we're in the time machine. And we were just chatting and saying you are kind of the perfect person to be the one to ask me all these questions, because it's not just my show, it's our show. There is no Climbing Sideways without Zubin in the background.
And yeah, you put me on the spot fairly early to be interviewed, which was fun. Had to get over a lot of self-consciousness, but it was cool. And we've talked about, we both really believe in what this show is for and sharing, all these bits about our careers as well. So yeah, I'm excited. And also it's cool because I legitimately don't know the answer to basically any of the questions that I'm going to ask you.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
Because we know each other basically still just through making this show.
Yeah.
And you've alluded to certain things from your past, but we'll finally get the full, unabridged, linear story today.
Yeah. TBD on how much I'll cut when we're actually editing.
yeah, which will be up to you.
But yes, I am more than happy to share my sort of life journey, my career journey, and then at the end, we'll sort of dive in and talk about what actually, how it turned into this show.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, what did you want to be when you were a kid?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I don't think it was one thing. When I was younger, I remember wanting to be a teacher, but that was just because I really liked drawing on the chalkboard. It wasn't actually about wanting to teach anyone else anything.
R.I.P. chalkboards.
R.I.P. chalkboards, for sure. And then as I got older, I got more into photography. That happened when I was in high school. And I definitely, the idea of being a Nat Geo photographer, of being able to go to remote places in the world and be on these amazing adventures and take photos and share those photos. I'm still a Nat Geo subscriber. I still get the print magazine every month. Mm-hmm. And I love it. And my kids love flipping through the pictures. But yeah, and then funny, I didn't even mention this in Annette's episode, but I had a similar adolescent experience, having many people say, you should be a lawyer, because I was, I guess, rather argumentative and or overly opinionated.
Right. This sort of gentle critique of a child to tell them they should be a lawyer.
Yes.
Because they're just questioning everything you say.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm an only child, and 2, I was raised by a single parent. And I was raised by a single parent who just would tote me along to adult things. And so I was very, very comfortable around adults from a young age, having conversations with adults. And so I ended up having this sense of wanting to be treated as an equal no matter who was around. And so I think other adults who perhaps didn't appreciate that also found me annoying as a kid.
Yeah, right. Because you're refusing to like play the part of child in those situations.
Yeah, or maybe I like didn't know that I was supposed to, right? Because the needing to behave in a more mature way was most of the time what was expected. So, including, I mean, to talk about first jobs, I did talk about this on an episode, but from a young age, I was answering phones at the family business, figuring out how to pick up the phone and figure out who they needed to talk to and dial in those extensions and get people connected.
Cool. What was the family business?
So my grandfather started the business, and they were in coating plastic films in metal. So the easiest example is tinsel, is plastic film that's coated in metal. But it has all of these different applications. So when people finish a marathon and they wrap a space blanket, that's plastic coated in metal. They use some of the material to insulate Boeing planes. They have material on the Mars Curiosity rover.
So cool.
Yeah. So it's just one piece in a manufacturing process. And definitely think that having an entrepreneurial spirit runs in the family. My grandfather was a salesman for a company that did something very similar. He had a lot of good ideas. The people he was working for at the time didn't care to listen to his ideas. So he found a business partner. He borrowed some money from his father-in-law and started a business. And they were in business for 50 plus years, and they sold in 2018. So
Crazy.
The company still exists. Our family just doesn't own it anymore.
So your grandfather was in your life, the company was nearby, and you would like go there as a child.
Yeah, so I was born in Philly, and we ended up living in Newtown because that's where the manufacturing plant was. And so my mom moved there so that she could be 5 minutes from work and be able to pick me up from daycare very shortly after she was done for the day.
Cool.
So yeah, that plant is how we ended up living in the burbs.
Wow, crazy. So, okay, so you're a kid, you're around the family business, there's like entrepreneurial spirit around. What was the thing that introduced you to photography? Was it National Geographic magazines and just seeing them, or did you have like a teacher or like an older person who was doing photo? My interest in photos started with our family photo albums. So just, I feel like gradually, the older I got, it went from my mom was the one with her 35 millimeter film point and shoot camera. And she would put together an album. We always got doubles so that you could have stuff to put in frames and then stuff to put in the album. Getting doubles, by the way, for anyone who did not grow up in the era of film. I remember
was
that.
You would go to, a CVS or a camera store or whatever and have your film developed and ask them to give you 2 versions of every print. So you got your negatives back and then you got doubles. And so, yeah, as I got older, it just included me putting together the albums when we got home. And then it was both my mom and I taking pictures when we were on vacation. And then we went to Australia the summer after my freshman year in high school and had a little digital point and shoot camera at that point. And it was coming home and really loving some of those photos, but wanting to print them bigger and realizing the file size was not high quality enough for me to do that. And so 5x7 looked okay, 8x10. And I was like, I really wanted to sort of like make this big thing. And the file just, completely fell apart at that size. So yeah, I was probably 14 when I started begging for my first camera.
That's cool. So it was like a frustration with like what you could accomplish with the tools that you had in a way that like triggered you thinking more ambitiously about photo.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. And I have always loved a tactile thing. So for me, even from the very beginning, getting the prints, getting the doubles, getting some kind of physical, tangible thing that you can touch was always part of it. I needed to see it come off of the screen.
Yeah, cool. So you're 14, you are taking photos, maybe you just got like a nicer camera. Did you have like photo class in high school?
Yeah, I was very fortunate to go to a high school that had a black and white dark room and a really, really great arts program. I'm still friends with my high school art teacher. We have kids who are the same age, and she's the one who encouraged me to go to art school.
Cool. So I'm curious, like something that has come up a lot on this show is like being a kid, being interested in like some sort of creative thing, whether it's like drawing or photo or music, but then kind of the inevitable moment where you think about going to school for that thing, you start thinking about careers, but you also think about like the like art side of it, and you made the decision to go to art school, like very much like a expressive art program. What was it like when you were a teenager thinking about like turning photo into a career? Did you consider other types of photo programs? Did you consider doing just like a liberal arts school and kind of like having it be more on the side? What were you thinking about, and who was like advising you in that time?
What was I thinking about? I was thinking about all of those things, but not as deeply or as thoroughly as, I'm not even going to say as I should have. I don't think I was capable at that age of wrapping my head around what that meant.
Right.
I will say my mom is an accountant. So huge shout out to Mary for being willing to sign that check to let me go pursue my dreams. I think I have always been this very left brain, right brain person. And I won't go too much into it, but I also, as much as I did well academically and in the art room in high school, I had a lot of friction socially. It's reflecting back on it now, it actually is kind of wild that I just jumped in head first, because I don't think I felt confident enough in my talent and in my skill as a photographer at that age. And I had no idea, absolutely no idea what careers you could do, right? Now that I, understand all of the other jobs that exist in the photo industry and in the creative industry more broadly, it's a totally different world. But I had no concept for any of that. I just knew that I really liked it. And I don't think I felt as drawn to anything else. Mm-hmm. So I was a very strong academic student. I actually was like given a couple big scholarships, including like I could have gone elsewhere for a full ride. I don't know why my mom was not asking me to consider that a little bit more seriously. But yeah, I applied to a bunch of different liberal arts schools, and I applied to 2 art schools. I applied to Pratt and I applied to RISD. And I think my art teacher convinced me that it was a thing I should do and that I should pursue and that I would enjoy. And oh my God, if I could go back and spend another 4 years in the bubble of art school that is just making art all week for 4 years straight. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And I think the other big thing I didn't consider was big fish, small pond and I didn't even think I was the biggest fish in my sort of high school art pond. But you get to art school freshman year and you are just like so immediately humbled by the incredible talent that you are surrounded by. But I have a really good work ethic. And so I just dug in and was really committed to making art and figuring it out. And I was in New York City. You can't not have a good time at 18, 19 years old in New York City.
Yeah. I mean, you can. I mean, I definitely knew people who moved there to go to art school or music school and felt, there is a negative side to all those things you just described of like suddenly like you're not a big fish or you're not as like, yeah, you're in like a different pecking order, or you're comparing yourselves like negatively to other people. And that can be painful, I think. And I think it can especially be painful as you're starting to reckon with the career, because you're out on your own, you're immediately like thinking about money and the skills you're learning, you're starting to at least like put together into like some sort of plan for the rest of your life. But that's cool. I mean, the way that you've talked about going there, it sounded just so positive. Like you always talk about how like it was just such a gift of a time. And I'm almost tempted to ask like if there were any bad parts, because I feel very familiar with the good parts.
I think also because, like I said, high school socially was hard for me, that I was like so ready to get the hell out of there and be done. And Pratt is also physically beautiful. It is a green, lush sculpture garden in the middle of, this cool, fun neighborhood in Brooklyn, in Clinton Hill. I just felt like I was like around my people, which was not the case the 4 years prior to that.
Yeah. So more specifically, while you were at Pratt, what were your studies like? Like you went in with just this kind of big passion for photo, but when you entered that photo program, how much was there like a set path through the program, and how much were you immediately like choosing electives or choosing what your focus was going to be? Like, did the career stuff start to come into focus while you were still in school?
So Arturo talked about this a little bit. Pratt actually doesn't really... Pratt is very much a fine art school. They're like teaching you about a practice. The photo curriculum is pretty laid out. You start with what's called foundation year, where you do a little bit of everything. And for the photo stuff specifically, you start with black and white 35 millimeter, using the darkroom, all that good stuff. And then you move from black and white into color. Traditional C printing is very, very cool. And then once you've got the core down, it builds and you progressively learn all these different things. So digital, Photoshop, retouching, studio lighting, large format film photography. And then alongside like all of that skill building, you're also taking art history, which includes history of photography, and you learn how to critique work and talk about it in a classroom setting with the goal of like pushing each other to make the best work possible. And then it sort of culminates with making a year-long body of work for your thesis and presenting it as a gallery style show at the end of the year. And, I mentioned that insecurity and questioning my artistic abilities, but I always knew that I'm very good at figuring out things technically. So I really loved learning all these different mediums and tools and tricks.
Right. Yeah.
And so it was like, even if I'm not the best photographer, I will have, it will be well exposed. It will be well printed. It will be well developed. And that's, I think, a huge gap. There are people who have tons and tons and tons of talent, but they don't necessarily have the work ethic to bring the skill up to where it needs to be to elevate.
Yeah.
And I think the best art is the combination of those two things. You have the creativity, you have the vision, but you also understand that without the technical skill, those things fall apart.
Yeah, totally. And like in the context of, talking about career stuff and like the types of opportunities that can come after school, knowing that you enjoy the technical side, because sometimes opportunities will come up that's like focusing on the technical side. Or like,
and that's where I went for a long time.
Yeah, lots of kinds of assisting or et cetera. So yeah, what did you do right after school?
Right after school, while I was applying for real jobs, I actually worked at the Phillies stadium taking pictures of people as they walked in. Cool. If you've ever gone to a sporting event, and had an obnoxious person in a polo ask to take your photo right when you come in, that's what I did.
Amazing. Wow.
So I did that. Well, first I should say, again, many thanks to my mom for all of her support. But when I graduated, I did a cross-country road trip. And so I did nothing for 2 months.
Cool.
And I traveled. And the other thing that was really cool was the fall show in the gallery at my high school is always an alumni show. And so they asked me to be the alumni show that fall. And so I'm finishing thesis and I'm like, basically have a decision. Am I going to just put my thesis work in another gallery in a few months? Or am I going to try and make a whole new body of work? And I made a whole new body of work. And actually, after working on thesis nonstop, it was incredible and liberating. And so I got to finish art school and go on this amazing road trip. I had a bright yellow Xterra at the time, which separately is ridiculous. I don't know why I thought having a yellow car in New York City was a good idea. People used to try and get in the back of my, I literally look like a cab. And so I drove cross country and actually had a couple different friends along with me. I made this whole other body of work, put it in a gallery in the fall.
And you were making that body of work on the trip, so you were taking photos.
Yeah, very like Route 66, classic Americana, and it was a combo of digital and medium format film.
Cool.
And then real quickly went right to, okay, now I need a job. Worked at the Phillies Stadium while I was applying for all of these other things. And my first big girl job, as they call it, was doing product photography for a company that makes kitchen tools called OXO.
Okay. Yeah, I know OXO.
Yeah.
I believe I own their spatula.
Many people own their spatula.
That's good.
Yeah, my kitchen is still filled with all the stuff that I was lucky enough to be able to bring home from there. And I worked there until I got pregnant with Gabe.
Wow. Cool. So what was that experience like? Like coming, I guess, sort of in the, maybe emotionally or in the sort of like just the experience of watching your life come into shape, like coming out of art school, which you describe as kind of this like playground of creativity, going into like the Phillies job, going into like product photography. How did it feel? Like, did you feel excited about the work? Did you feel fulfilled? Were there frustrations? Like,
the Phillies job felt so silly and also a little terrifying of like, okay, did I just go to art school for 4 years? Like, it was something. I got to watch the Phillies games for free, but I was not actually making money.
You weren't taking photos of fans in like black and white, 35 millimeter. Like.
No. And so I got the job at OXO because another friend of mine from Pratt was a graphic designer on their team. And she just like sent me a text and was like, hey, we're hiring. They did not have an in-house photography studio at the time. And as many companies do, they realized that they were spending a ton of money on freelancers every time they needed photos. And so what was really cool about being there was that I got to help build out a studio and a process and all this kind of stuff that didn't exist before.
Cool.
No, I just wanted stability. It was like, I have a BFA in photography and a minor in art history, and you're telling me there's an opportunity to have a steady paycheck and a 401k match? Yes. And health insurance? Yes, please. Yes, I will take that.
Yeah, awesome. And I guess like we talked about, like you knew that you enjoyed just like the craft so much of photography. And I'm sure being in a position where you're like well-funded, I'm sure you like had access to like good tools and like a good structure to be able to just like focus on the craft of photo was probably really fun.
Yes, but your use of the word craft, we were not making art in any way, shape, or form.
But you're making like great photos, you know, that are like doing their job. I think that's what I mean by craft is like you have to make something that is like functional at a very high level.
Yes, the technical piece, 100%.
Yeah, it can't be like poorly lit.
No, especially not when it's metal and shiny. The knives were the hardest days some days.
Which seems hard. And that's interesting. You know.
Yeah, it was actually really cool because, like I said, Pratt did not always prepare us for how these things apply in the real world. But I understood business and I understood that photo was a requirement for the needs for packaging, for marketing, et cetera. And I was learning a whole different thing because I was working on packaging with a team of graphic designers in a way that, you know, that didn't exist for me at all before. And so I just kind of nerded out. And then definitely got my early love for a process improvement and making things better there. And it is cool when you're in a studio where nothing has ever been done before, we're kind of building it as we go, which meant I did have the agency to say, oh, we should do this way, or we should do this way, and make things better and jump in and help.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So you did that for, you said 4 years?
It wasn't even that long. 2 and change, I think. Yeah.
And then, what,
I got pregnant and I wasn't.
I was actually going to ask, do you want to talk about like having children and like that whole part of your life?
Yeah. I got pregnant and I didn't want to be a Brooklyn mom. It was like, and I wasn't making enough money to be a Brooklyn mom. It was like pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And so I was managing all of the retouching that we sent out to external vendors. So we were photographing everything, but our team was too small to handle the like detailed retouching for everything. And so we also weren't particularly happy with our retouching vendors. And I got pregnant with Gabe, and I kind of realized that I could take paid maternity leave and then make a decision about whether or not I was going to come back. But because I knew I wasn't going to come back from mat leave, I decided to leave when I was like 8.5 months pregnant and leave on really good terms with everybody and, be really clear about what my intentions were. And I moved into being the primary freelance retoucher. And that was my bread and butter for a really long time. And then I built up a retouching business with other clients around that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you understood that if you did the thing where you like took the maternity leave and then left, you're kind of screwing them over.
Yeah.
Like you're taking a paycheck and then leaving. So by doing the kind of like kind thing to them, or kind maybe isn't the exact right word, but like by being upfront about your plans, you were able to turn it into this freelance relationship.
Yeah. I wasn't trying to like get one over on anyone.
Yeah.
And I received that career advice from somebody at some point that was basically like, unless you really have to, don't burn any bridges.
Yeah.
Because you just never know. You never know who's going to be in a room that's making a decision about you.
Okay, so you did that job, you got pregnant, you decided you didn't want to live in New York, you left, became a freelancer, you moved back to Philly area at that time?
I actually moved back to my old neighborhood.
Cool.
My mom still lived in the house I grew up in, and a house in the same neighborhood went up for sale.
Awesome.
So,
and then you were a mom, but you were also like keeping up this freelance business and building that. Cool. So how long were you just primarily doing that?
The cool thing about that phase of my life was I did still take photography jobs, but I didn't need to do anything for money other than the retouching. And so the jobs that I was photographing were the jobs I really wanted to photograph. And that's how things worked all the way up until the motorcycle accident.
Right. So yeah, do you want to talk about the motorcycle accident? This is something that you've alluded to. I'm curious even just before that, a little bit about your history with motorcycles. Like when did you start riding motorcycles? Was that a thing you got into as a teenager?
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to get into in New York City, I would imagine.
So I started riding on a Kimco People 150, which is like a knockoff Vespa.
Okay.
My senior year of high school, my mom just thought it would be fun to get a little scooter. I was used to riding them. They have them on an island that we visit in Mexico pretty regularly.
Cool.
So I was already comfortable with them just from silly rentals. But what ended up happening is it is not legal in the state of Pennsylvania to have a passenger on one of those scooters unless you have a motorcycle license. So we had this little Vespa, and I realized that as I was like picking up my friend Lindsay to go to the pool, I was actually breaking the law. And so my mom was like, just go and get your license. It's free. I don't think it's free anymore, but it was free at the time to take the MSF course. It was like 2 or 3 days in a classroom and then 2 days in a parking lot with a bunch of people. And from the moment I took the MSF class, I was hooked.
Because in taking the class, are you riding like more proper motorcycles?
Yeah, they're small. They're little 250s. There were like Honda Rebels and a Suzuki GZ250 is what all of the...
I love lingo for like things that I don't know about, you know, because it's just as an aside, it's always fun to hear people be like, oh yeah, they're like QR 9000 like XG, you know, it's like, but I'm that way about audio gear, you know, I'll go on and on about it, but yeah.
Small Honda, small Suzuki is what you learn on in the class. And I was hooked. And I bought my first bike when I was maybe a sophomore at Pratt, but left it in PA. And it actually was commuting from Brooklyn to Manhattan. And the one apartment I was living in was fine. The other apartment in Bushwick, I was taking 3 different trains and still having a mile to walk to get to work after I got off the subway.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is horseshit. And so I brought my motorcycle to New York City. Yeah, I was a commuter for the longest time. As long as there wasn't snow on the ground or the rain wasn't torrential, that's how I got to work.
Wow. Motorcycling from Bushwick to like, what,
Chelsea.
like Hell's Kitchen? Yeah, wow. Badass. That sounds very cool and very fun to be like in your early 20s. Like,
oh, it was great.
Yeah, biking across New York every
The New
day.
York City motorcycle scene is awesome. I talked about this a little bit in the episode with Kate, which by the time this comes out, episode 10 with Kate will have come out. But yeah, motorcycle people are adventurous, you know, a little bit risk takers, and a lot of them like creative, hands-on, cool, interesting people.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So you were already into motorcycling. When you moved back to PA, it became more of just a recreational thing.
Yeah. And for a while, that was my preferred method of travel. So it's funny. The reason I think it connects to being a photographer is so much of when I travel is being pulled between, am I just going to sit here and enjoy this for what it is? Or am I going to try and make something, make a photo, make a piece of art, anything? And motorcycling removes that choice. I'm not trying to make a photo. I am simply existing. And everything else just kind of falls away. It's the fresh air. It's, you know, often being on the highway is not fun. So I'm often taking back roads. My preferred method of travel is on a motorcycle with I know where I'm going to sleep, but no other real plans.
Yeah.
Which means I can stop as frequently or as infrequently as I want. I can be like, oh, that place looks cool. Let's stop. And seeking out the best coffee and carbs.
Yeah.
That's really all I want to do.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. The romance of motorcycling and just like the physical experience of it is so attractive to me. Like I totally get it. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like if I had the Vespa experience or what you're talking about, I could have seen myself going down that path, but.
Yeah. And I love it so much that I couldn't give it up even when it almost killed me.
Yeah. So tell us about the motorcycle crash in however much detail you want to.
It was day 1 of what was supposed to be, I think, a week-long trip with one of my good friends. And we made it down to the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. And an old lady, not looking where she was going, turned left in front of us and took us both out like bowling pins.
Both of you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah. My injuries were worse because I was in front. And I basically broke every bone in my body and lost a whole bunch of blood and 100% should not be here.
Whoa.
And then I was in the ICU for like 2 weeks, I think. I had a major surgery every other day for the first week. The first one was just to like stabilize everything. And my hands. Yeah. I mean, so like being a photographer, I couldn't move my right hand. I couldn't move my fingers. I like didn't know if I was ever going to be able to operate the buttons on a camera ever again.
Whoa.
And then just didn't seem like there was a like my kids were 1.5 and 3.
Yeah.
So there wasn't anything to do but to suck it up and get better, you know?
Yeah.
So I went from the hospital to a rehab facility. And for a couple of reasons, the care there wasn't great. And so my mom's oldest sister was a nurse for her entire career. She's retired now, but she moved up from Florida and stayed with us for a couple of weeks. And she was my primary caregiver in a hospital bed in my own house.
Whoa.
And yeah, my mom's one of 11 and comes from an incredible family. So it was just a rotation of different people sitting with me and
doing childcare too, probably.
Yeah.
Wow.
And truly, my family is the best, but I also have to give a massive, massive shout out to Tori, who my kids lovingly call Tortor. She was their sometimes babysitter, and when the accident happened, she stepped up and became basically a full-time nanny. We're still best friends. She's family.
You could talk about this if you want, but as a freelancer, I have to ask, did you have good health insurance?
I did have good health insurance at the time and was incredibly fortunate that, you know, my mom made it very clear that she would support me. So many other freelancers and people who ceased being able to work for, I think I didn't work for like 6 or 7 months. You know, that can make you go bankrupt.
Totally.
So,
I mean, not to mention, I mean, we're around the same age, like growing up when like Obamacare had just become a thing, but there was a long period of time where I still knew a lot of people who just didn't have insurance, you know.
I still right now know a bunch of people who are uninsured because of the cost of health insurance.
Yeah, and the whole like everyone must have insurance thing has been enforced in weird different ways by different administrations. And yeah, I have always known, especially older musicians who just don't have insurance, and you see those, horrible GoFundMes when someone's just like, something happened and I have like hundreds of thousands of dollars of bills. So
yeah, the bills that went to the insurance company were crazy.
Sure.
The bills that came to us were manageable.
That's great.
And
yeah.
I mean, again, shout out to the Brooklyn motorcycle community at the time, because those women showed up, showed out. They offered to put together a GoFundMe. I said, please don't do that. I don't want anyone, spending money on me.
Yeah.
And when I said that, they did a blood drive instead.
Cool. Wow.
And so that was really cool and really awesome. And I mean, career-wise, I was just so panicked that I hadn't made money for 6+ months that by the time I felt okay-ish enough, I then was like mass applying and trying to go back to doing the same thing I was doing before. And I was working at a product photography studio in Princeton. And it is crazy because I was still having surgery. So I had like I had 2 follow-up surgeries after like all the big stuff. And I had a surgery to remove all the metal in my left leg. And I have this vivid memory of being like a week post-op with my leg propped up at my desk there working. Like, what the fuck was I doing?
Oh my God. Yeah.
What was I doing?
Yeah. I mean, gotta do what you gotta do. It's crazy. Like, I mean, I understand like the feeling of not being able to work. I haven't had anything to that degree, but I had like an ear surgery a few years ago, and similarly was just like in bed being like, like get me back out there. And I mixed a whole podcast series with one ear because my other one was plugged up.
And should you, okay, wait, we should get into like this portion of it though. Should you have been doing that? Or should you have just been fucking resting?
Yeah. Well, I think it's an interesting question because I do think rest when you feel so like incapable, it is emotionally hard and detrimental maybe to be like that bored, or feeling like you're not being useful.
This has come up a lot in conversations with people because for me, what it came down to was like self-worth.
Yeah.
If I'm not being productive, if I'm not doing something,
Right.
who am I without that? What will other people think of me if I just don't work for a whole year, right? Where like I had the best fucking excuse in the world to not work for a year.
Yeah.
And yet I have no recollection of that even feeling like it was an option.
Yeah.
And part of that was the money piece, because I mean, we don't need to go into all of this, but that surgery that I had on my left leg, a week after that, a tree fell on my house. And you can laugh. It's ridiculous. A tree fell on my house. And because the tree was on a power line, and because my neighborhood is situated in a place that not that many houses were impacted by the power outage, Pico didn't come and deal with it, which meant it just rained inside my house for about 2 weeks before anything happened. So what did not need to be shout out Pico. What did not need to be that much damage turned into my entire house needing to get ripped down to the studs because all of the water just seeped through the walls to everything. Which meant I got, I'll be transparent about the money. I think the check was for something like $240,000
from like home insurance,
from my accident settlement. So the accident happened in the fall of 2018. And you go through the rigmarole of suing the other person's auto insurance.
Right.
And so there was a thought before the tree fell on the house that I could take my time going back to work. And then
because you had that payment,
I would have a cushion.
Yeah.
I would just be able to focus on letting my physical form heal.
Right. This is like insurance doing what it should do. There was money to let you take the time to heal.
Hypothetically. And then when the tree fell on the house, literally, I think there was less than 48 hours between when that check went into my account and when I wrote a check for even more than that to the contractor.
Oh my God. Because did you have home insurance? I guess on the topic of insurances.
Yes, but you never know whether or not your homeowner's insurance is good until you actually go to use it. Yeah, I don't know. It was like going back to work for a while. It just felt like I had to go back and do what I was doing before and try and make up for lost time.
Right.
And so I was at that studio in Princeton for a little while. And then a photographer that I worked at OXO was actually at a different kitchen and housewares company as the director of photography. And I had been doing freelance retouching for them, but they wanted to build out a team of in-house retouchers. They were starting to do this weird thing. I think I maybe have told you about this, where they were combining 3D renderings of the products with photos of the food.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we started working with 3D renderings where they're building what looks like a photo in Blender. And so I was the post-production manager there, and I hired a couple other retouchers internally, and I was managing all of the 3D renderers. And that was cool because it was the first time I ever got to hire my own people and build out my own team myself. And again, a job that didn't exist there before, building out the processes, making a workflow happen that didn't exist there at all before.
Yeah. So I guess inherent in what you just said is you left behind the freelance retouching business, maybe just because you felt like you needed like a different amount of stability and benefits and stuff and need to like go back and have a full-time job again.
Yes. And I'm pretty sure it aligned with, I knew I was getting divorced and was going to need my own health insurance again.
Right. And you were very familiar with the benefits of having health insurance at this point.
Yeah. And I think everything else was just so busy and so crazy. The idea of just, I think of being a full-time employee as just having a single client.
Right. Yeah. And like someone's going to tell you what to do to some extent.
Yeah.
There's like clarity of purpose and schedule, ideally. All jobs are different, I guess.
Yeah.
This is a freelancer's romanticized version of having a job.
Yeah, because you've never had a job,
it's like,
Zubin.
Right. You work 9 to 5 every day and someone tells you exactly what to do. And
it's more like 8:30 to 7:30.
To make sure that you don't work too hard. And then you go on vacation for a month, right?
Yeah. No, not at all.
No, I know.
That was the first place that I would say I experienced my first taste of like a truly toxic boss. and the life learning that HR is not there for you. HR is there to protect the company from getting sued. And I got laid off from that job 2 weeks after having I had another surgery on my hand. I got laid off and divorced the same week. Which, like, the divorce I was so happy about. And so it was this like emotional roller coaster of like, yes, finally this thing is done, blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, divorced and laid off in the same week. And the idea of going back to school, I had been like noodling with it, but that's when it really was like, what the fuck am I doing? This thing is, retouching requires a lot of like taking a pen. I retouch with a pen and tablet. And like the way that I was sitting, it was horrible for my wrist, horrible for my hand, horrible for my shoulder.
Wow.
And it was like, I can't keep at it like this. But I did think that job was cool because I was like, I can take all of this really niche specific knowledge that's in my brain and train other people to do it and manage this thing that I have all of this knowledge of. But that wasn't valued. And I was still, I was in such bad shape. And so I got laid off and I was like, okay, I really started to dig in and look more seriously at grad programs. And I think that would have been the beginning of 22. And I started grad school January of the next year.
Mm-hmm. And what was that program?
Design Management and Communications at Georgetown's School of Continuing Studies.
Cool.
So it's their program that's set up for adult learners. There's like tons of programs in SES, and it's a very cool model. Mine was entirely online and entirely asynchronous. So
crazy.
And then I was like, yeah, I'm just going to do the school thing. And a week after I started grad school, I was recruited for the job at Princeton.
Oh, so that happened at that point. So because that grad program was asynchronous, was it possible to fit it around like a full-time job?
Yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
My job at Princeton technically was part-time, but it very quickly became, I needed to be available 5 days a week, even though I was only in the office 3 days a week.
Right.
And just a lot of late nights and weekends. I don't know. And by then I was a single parent.
Yeah. And how old are your kids at this point?
7 and 8, I guess.
So solidly like into school and those types of things.
Yeah.
When you chose that grad program, what were the kinds of opportunities that you were thinking about getting coming out of them? Like obviously like less physical, less like actual retouching work, but what were the kind of things you had in mind?
Well, I really enjoyed working with graphic designers and art directors and like on the creative process in the commercial world more broadly and more generally. And so I was applying for roles like that, whether it was project management or just like to be on those teams generally. But because my entire resume was photo only, on paper, it wasn't clear that I could do that, right? Because on paper, you're not explaining that every place I've been, I've reworked the process or documented the process or changed the way that we organize our files or developed new internal communication systems, right? That doesn't show up easily when people are just looking at the title of what you do.
Right.
So, and I think a lot of people who don't have any knowledge of creative work don't understand that creative production is just project management. And if you can wrangle creative people, you can wrangle
horses.
left brain people very easily. So the program specifically was aimed at people who were bridging the gap between business and design. And it felt like the perfect way to apply my left brain, right brain approach to everything. A Georgetown degree is nothing to scoff at. Yeah. So the fact that it was at Georgetown also, carried some weight and made a difference. And I liked the idea that I really thought I'd be able to get my foot in the door at different places, managing creative teams more broadly outside of just photography specifically.
Yeah, cool. Great. And that program was like all you hoped it would be? Like, I mean, it sounds like it was really hard to have the job and get through it, but
the time management piece was hard. The time management piece was hard. The work itself, I really enjoyed.
Cool.
And it was different than what I expected, but just because until you learn what design thinking is, you can't wrap your head around it. But it's a problem-solving framework that I'm now a total nerd about. So
cool.
And then 2 weeks into my final semester, a friend of mine that I know through motorcycles picked up the phone and asked me to start working for her. So that's the brand strategy firm that I was at.
Cool. And did that feel like it was in line with like this new type of role
Very
that you
much
wanted?
so.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. It was like watching someone do those things out in the real world and apply them at the highest level, you know, moving away from the case study and like just learning and watching how someone digs in and does it. It was very cool.
Wow. I feel like that's the hope for any kind of school, is that like the opportunities to use what you're learning are like bashing down the door, you know, and you feel like this gravity like pulling you into that field.
Yeah. And then she basically had built up a few different agency type situations throughout her career. And that's more or less what we were building. We were a small team of about 5. And then she changed her mind that she didn't want to build that agency. And so the thought was that I would sort of like build out this separate arm within that business. And when she changed her mind about not wanting to build out the agency, I just was like, let me see if I can do this on my own.
Yeah, cool. So that's been kind of the freelance career you've been doing since then.
Yeah, and that's been since last August.
Cool.
And I'm still not very good. I have to, you know, the irony of being a communicator and not having a good 2-sentence elevator pitch for what I do now. But I've joked that I'm a professional problem solver.
Yeah.
And because I'm such a process and workflow nerd, I will either sort of internally help people solve whatever their biggest annoyance is, or if it's an external, then we're probably talking about communications, website, visual design, visual branding, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, do you need help inside or do you need help outside? And I can help you with either. And a lot of times people think they only need one, but they actually need both. And so like sort of delicately showing people the path forward.
Cool. And is that you're kind of being like a consultant for companies and like helping them do that? Or because you also do it for like individual people, right? Like helping them like organize their own processes around the work that they do.
Yes, I would say Georgetown requires you to take an ethical design class. And during that class, the final product is a code of ethics. And I think when I started the class, I was rolling my eyes a little bit. But in explaining how I want to do the work and how I want to show up in the world, I realized that I definitely always want to have a pro bono client. And I am much more driven to working with high impact organizations and individuals. I donate right now like 25% of my time to an organization called Wild Bird Research Group. I'm rocking Wild Bird merch today.
It's very cool for those of you listening along.
But I really just want to help people who are trying to do important things out in the world. I just joined the board of another nonprofit that's they fund housing grants for women completing their college degrees. It's called the LCU Fund for Women's Education. And, you know, my bank account this year is much lower than it was this time last year. But I'm really committed to just like doing work that matters. Yeah. So, I mean, your question was about like, do I consider myself a consultant? I actually genuinely don't understand the difference between a consultant and a freelancer.
Yeah, I guess it was more of like a logistical question, or like I don't really understand either. And just, trying to understand like how this freelance career works in kind of a logistical way.
Well, I also say a lot of people start small creative businesses because they like doing the thing. And then they really quickly realize they don't actually like running the business around doing that thing.
Yeah.
So all the way back to understanding how a business runs, because I was around one and in one from a very young age, and having a CFO mother who always helped me keep my, invoicing and banking and like very ducks in a row.
Yeah.
I just always had the right help and support to figure it out. So for my solopreneurs and my small business creative friends, that's the kind of stuff, because I believe in what they're doing, and it's such a bummer when someone's business falls apart, not because the thing that they're doing isn't valuable or good or wonderful, but just because they don't have the steam to keep the back end of the business going.
Right. Or just like the infrastructure or the logistics And you clearly have had such a broad collection of experiences on very different businesses and teams and everything that it makes sense that you have the skills to advise like a wide variety of people.
And when you're doing it on such a small scale, the like life stuff plays such a big role.
Right.
That like you have to acknowledge that people's health issues come into it, people's relationship issues come into it, people's money issues come into it. And so I always approach it with like a very human first lens. We can't solve those problems if we don't understand why you have a hard time saying no to your clients when they ask you to do something in less than 48 hours.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
There's a little bit of therapy in there.
Yeah.
A little bit of social work.
Yeah. And then, post-accident, just a deep empathy for so many people are just going through stuff that you can't see that impacts how they show up.
Right. Yeah. Cool. So why start a podcast?
When I was in grad school, there were just so many things that I was like, holy shit, if I knew about that, I probably would have gone to school for that. I want to learn about everything. Yeah. I mean, I didn't talk about my borderline insane obsession with reading as many books every year as humanly possible. But I just always, I'm a lifelong learner. I always want to learn. And every time I talk to somebody or every time I learn about a new area of study, I'm just like, not in a bad way, not in like a yearning way. I just think about all the other things I could have been or could have done. And so I don't think I'm the only person who is fascinated by it. And, the big catalyst was getting not laid off, but having my, regular retainer contract go away. And again, just looking around and being like, well, what now? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I don't know where I want to go. And I don't actually know what I want it to look like. And the more that I talk to people about what they're doing, I realized a lot of us feel this way.
Yeah.
And the rise of AI has to do with it, and the like intense constraints of capitalism. And I don't know, it all feels really fucking relevant right now.
Yeah.
And I think we're all tired of like bullshit AI slop. And so I've called this show and this project unapologetically human.
Yeah. I mean, it also, clearly from the story we've just heard, you're someone whose path has like led you into a lot of different areas, and you've had like, I'm sure you could look back at everything that you've done and see like certain qualities about yourself as a person that were present in all of those, of like, a lot of things are creative, a lot of things are social and technical, and you're good at like using those different facilities in like flexible ways. But you have, in terms of like how you're making your money, you've moved between a lot of different situations.
A lot of different situations.
And I remember early on when we were talking, you were saying like, I think a lot of people have this experience where you do have lots of different jobs and you kind of like bounce around, and what sticks is surprising. And then maybe it only sticks for a couple of years and you do something else, and like the decision to go back to grad school. It makes sense hearing your full story, why you believe that people's like full kind of like work stories are interesting and like valuable to other people who are at some stage of that journey.
Yeah. And I genuinely hope that it's valuable even for someone who maybe has not had a weird ping pong all over the place journey.
Right.
Because some of the people that I've talked to on paper had a very linear path. And then had a moment where they realized this isn't what I want to be doing. And so the sharing of the like, that's totally fine. And I almost died to come to the realization that I didn't have to keep doing the one thing that I went to undergrad for forever.
Yeah.
And so you don't need to learn the lesson in the hard way that I had to learn it.
Yeah, that's why we started the podcast.
Yeah, like you can build your life however you want to build it. And that could look a million different ways. And there's literally no wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
Just do something that brings you joy. Sitting and talking to people and helping them alleviate the pain points in their business, their processes, whatever, and or making their external assets look better so that they can put their best foot forward literally makes me so happy.
And it's so cool to reflect that like your love of photography kind of like led you to this point of realizing that like a huge part of what you love to do with your time is like helping people.
Yeah.
Like you are really like a supporter of people and often a supporter of creative people or artists, but it seems like your understanding of the kinds of people you want to help like keeps expanding in a way. And that's such a beautiful realization to have about like your calling.
Oh yeah, I'm a big acts of service person for sure.
Yeah.
And this podcast is like the next iteration of that. I just want to help people figure out what they want to do or enjoy listening to people gab for an hour about what they do.
Yeah. I mean, the last question you usually ask is like, what advice would you give to people who want to do what you do? But I feel like a lot of what you just said is that like you're in this podcast in general, you are like trying to share that advice and these messages about like what is valid in a path. And
yeah, I think if I were to give any advice, it would just be if there's something else that you are even remotely interested in pursuing, just ask everyone you know if they know someone who does that.
Yeah.
Because these conversations is the most valuable way to figure it out.
Yeah.
So, we're not supposed to ask people, what do you do? But ask it.
Yeah. Cool. Great. Well, thanks. It
is always so
for
awkward.
Sharing your story. Yeah.
It's so awkward signing off.
I know.
Why?
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to Climbing Sideways. This was a special one, so I really hope you enjoyed it. If you feel so inclined, you can check my work out at decervantesdesign.com. I'll put the link in the show notes. And if you know anyone who needs communication or design support, my books for September and October are partially open. As always, infinite thanks to Zubin Hensler for all the mixing and original music for the show and for the interview today. I also have to give a shout out to Caroline Hall. She's the art teacher I mentioned. I actually still go back to my high school and chat with her AP art students every year. And I think she even sometimes puts this podcast on while they're working. So I definitely have to say hi to them. If you're on Substack, follow us there, climbingsideways.substack.com. And of course, we're on Instagram and Threads at climbingsidewayspod. Please rate us a review or drop us a line at climbingsidewayspod@gmail.com. This was the last episode for season 1, but we'll be back in the fall with more conversations and some live shows. Thanks so much. Bye.